Let's begin by clearing something up straight away. Florence Scovel Shinn never promised magic tricks. She never promised lottery tickets falling from the sky. And she indeed never promised money appearing because you stared intensely at a vision board while shouting affirmations at your kettle. What she did promise was far more unsettling and far more powerful. She promised law. And law does not negotiate. Now, before your logical mind starts tapping you on the shoulder, saying, "Yes, but $10,000 in 30 days sounds a little specific," let me gently remind you that Florence lived in a time when $10,000 was not pocket change. It was a minor miracle by most standards. Yet she spoke of money as something responsive, something obedient, something that followed instruction, when the instruction came from the right place. Not effort, not panic, not desperation, but alignment. Florence understood something most people still struggle with today. Money does not respond to need. It responds to command. And command is not shouting. It is certainty without strain. Most people say they want money, but what they are really saying underneath is, "I hope I don't lose what I have." And the universe is very literal. It hears fear, not words. Florence would say, "If you speak of lack, you invite lack. If you joke about being broke, you give it a chair and a cup of tea." And this is where the humor comes in, because many people spend their days affirming abundance while simultaneously checking their bank balance as if it owes them an apology. Florence would raise an eyebrow at that. She taught that money comes through channels, not miracles. And when people hear that, they often sigh with disappointment, because channels sound like effort. But channels are not effort. Channels are pathways, and pathways open when resistance closes. The reason this matters is simple. You do not need to create $10,000. You need to stop blocking it. Florence never said, "Try harder," she said. "Speak differently." She taught that words spoken with conviction shape circumstances, and words spoken casually often shape chaos. This is why she was so precise with language. No begging, no pleading, no dramatic speeches to the universe at 3 in the morning. Instead, she taught short, clean, authoritative statements, almost boring in their calm. Statements like, "Infinite Spirit opens the way for my immediate supply." Not frantic, not emotional, just factual. Because when you speak as if something is already arranged, life scrambles to confirm it. Most people try to feel rich first. Florence taught people to feel settled first. The money follows calm far faster than it follows excitement. And here is the part that often gets missed. Florence never obsessed over timelines. She simply understood momentum. When resistance is removed, things move quickly. 30 days is not magic. It is a natural window for patterns to shift when the inner conversation changes. This is not about forcing $10,000 into your life. It is about allowing it to find you without obstruction. And yes, that can happen faster than you think. Florence saw it happen time and time again. She wrote about people who received unexpected payments, business opportunities, reconciled debts, surprising inheritances, and sudden commissions, not because they chased money, but because they stopped arguing with it internally. Which brings us to the real gift. The gift is not the money. The gift is the posture. And once you have that posture, money becomes responsive rather than elusive. Florence Scovel Shinn believed the universe had impeccable hearing, but absolutely no ability to filter sarcasm, doubt, or self-deprecation. Which explains a lot. She taught that every word you speak is a command, whether you mean it to be or not. When you say, "Money just disappears," life says, "Understood." When you say, "I'm terrible with money," life says, "We will make sure that story stays consistent." Florence did not ask people to lie. She asked them to stop confessing defeat. She understood that money responds to identity, not hope. This is why her teachings feel oddly modern. She was teaching identity shifts long before psychology caught up. To Florence, receiving $10,000 was not about earning it harder. It was about becoming someone who expects supply, rather than in someone who braces for disappointment. Now, here is where people get uncomfortable, because expectation feels dangerous to those who have been disappointed before. Florence would say, Expectancy rooted in fear collapses. Expectancy rooted in law stabilizes. In other words, if you expect money because you are scared of being without it, you repel it. If you expect money because you understand supply is orderly, you attract it calmly. This is why her affirmations were never emotional pep talks. They were statements of alignment. One of her favorites, "I am undisturbed by appearances, therefore appearances move." That sentence alone has rescued more bank accounts than most budgeting apps. Florence taught that when you stop reacting to what you see rearranges. Most people do the exact opposite. They react first, panic second, affirm third, and wonder why nothing changes. Florence flipped the order. She taught that you speak first, settle second, and allow third. And yes, that can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if your life has trained you to watch before you trust. But this is the point where humor becomes helpful, because if worrying worked, most people would be billionaires by now. Florence would gently remind us that anxiety has never paid a bill. It has only rehearsed poverty. The spoken word, according to Florence, is not about volume. It is about authority. Authority does not shout. It states. So instead of saying, "I hope money comes," Florence would have you say, "My supply arrives through expected and unexpected channels." Write this in the comments below. Notice how calm that is. No begging, no timeline panic, just instruction. And here is the fascinating part. When you stop micromanaging how money arrives, channels begin to widen. Opportunities that were previously invisible show up not because they weren't there, but because anxiety narrowed perception. Florence taught that the universe is incredibly cooperative once you stop interfering emotionally. And that is why the 30-day window matters. It gives your nervous system time to calm, your language time to stabilize, and your environment time to respond. Money often arrives through ideas, conversations, reminders, and impulses you suddenly trust. Florence never separated spiritual law from practical action. She simply removed fear from that action. Which is why her students often reported things happening with strange ease. Ease is not laziness. Ease is alignment without resistance. And resistance, according to Florence, is almost always linguistic. Florence Scovel Shinn would not ask you to sit still for 30 days doing nothing, nor would she ask you to hustle harder while pretending to be spiritual. She would ask you to become cooperative with the supply, and cooperation begins with restraint. Yes, restraint. Restraint from complaining, from joking about lack, from narrating fear aloud like it is a trusted friend. Florence believed spoken worry was the fastest way to cancel unseen assistance. So the first step is simple and mildly uncomfortable. Stop telling the old story. Not suppressing thoughts, just not voicing them. Florence taught that silence is sometimes the most powerful affirmation. The second step is to adopt a single governing statement, not 50 affirmations, not a playlist of declarations, just one sentence you return to calmly. Something like, "Infinite supply moves toward me now through perfect channels." You do not chant it. You do not force emotion into it. You say it the way you would say, "The sun will rise tomorrow." Certainty without excitement. Florence trusted a calm tone more than enthusiasm. Then comes the most overlooked part. Follow gentle impulses without drama. Florence wrote that intuition is the voice of supply, giving directions. That nudge to email someone, revisit an idea, accept an invitation, adjust pricing, start or stop something, these are not random, they are channels opening. But here is the humorous twist. Many people ignore intuition because it does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, politely, almost inconveniently. Florence would say, divine ideas are often ignored because they sound too ordinary. And that is where money hides, in ordinary ideas acted on calmly. Over the 30 days, your job is not to count money, it is to count alignment. Are you speaking differently? Are you reacting less? Are you trusting impulses without overthinking? Florence trusted that when alignment is consistent, results follow naturally. Sometimes $10,000 arrives exactly as expected. Sometimes it arrives as value that converts shortly afterward. Florence did not micromanage form. She respected law. And law always balances. So yes, this is a gift. Not because Florence hands you money, but because she hands you posture. A posture where money no longer feels like a chase. A posture where supply feels cooperative. A posture where calm replaces effort. And when that posture becomes natural, $10,000 is no longer a fantasy. It is simply one of many possible outcomes. Florence would smile at that. Not because she was impressed by money, but because she understood order. And order, once recognized, always responds. If this video resonated with you, give it a like and subscribe. That way, we can continue this journey together.